Shalom Aleichem. We continue in Mishneh Torah, the Rabbeinu Agadol Rambam, Zichrono Libracha. Hilchot Deot, Perek Hamishi. In many of the standard editions, this is a continuation of Halacha Teth. In more accurate editions, it is Halacha Yod Teth, the end of Halacha Teth, Halacha Yod Teth. And I will share the screen with you. So, Rambam says, Lo yaseh talmid hachamim mevusam lashuk. Mevusam, from the word bosem, perfume, means that a talmid hachamim should not go out into the street, into the public domain, perfumed. This was not the way of reasonable people. It was in fact often an indication of licentious and forbidden behaviors such as homosexuality. This, of course, does not mean that one must not use or should not use deodorant or even some kind of cologne, etc., in order to feel and smell fresh, but not to overdo it. So lo yaseh talmid hachamim mevusam lashuk, v'lo bivgadim mevusamim, nor should his clothing be in this fashion perfumed in that way. V'lo yasim bosem bisa'aro, or place some kind of perfume or fragrant gel in his hair. These are all behaviors which are not proper for a Torah person, a male, that is to say. For a woman, it is perfectly okay. There too, to overdo these things is also improper. If a woman is overly perfumed and wherever she goes, everyone's attention is thus distracted and directed towards her, that is also not proper. This is what we said a moment ago. If a person uses some product, a fragrant product, in order to that he should not, his body odor should not be offensive. That's what it means. Zuhama. Zuhama literally means filth. Here it refers to body odor, perspiration, etc. That is mutar. V'chen lo yaseh yichidi balayla. Nor should he be out and about at night alone. Unless it is his habit, he has a fixed havrutha, learning session with someone at night at that time. Kol elu mipanei hashad, and all of these have to do with hashad. The word hashad always refers to raising the possibility in people's minds of sexual impropriety. That is what the word hashad, literally suspicion, refers to. With regards to going out at night, this applies today as well, but in certain situations, in certain places. For a talmid hachamim to be seen in a certain type of neighborhood, in a certain kind of area, where certain kinds of things go on, night or day, particularly at night, this would definitely not be correct. However, today, with street lighting and other changed realities, also in terms of when people are out and about, not as it used to be that when it was dark, people were at home, generally. So some of these things are more nuanced today, but a person with sense. Note, I do not use the word common sense, as it is not, but the word sense, if a person has sense, then an understanding, then he will know when it is reasonable to do this or not to do that, etc. Rambam continues. This is now halacha yod or kaf. Tamid hachamim mechalkel devaro b'mishpat. Tamid hachamim runs his affairs in a responsible fashion. We're referring here to economic affairs, as we see immediately from the coming words. Ochel v'shoteh v'zan et anshe beitho. He provides for his family, anshe beitho, literally the people of his household. Kefi mamono v'haslahato, according to his means. In general, a reasonable person, a wise person, a responsible person, lives according to his means. This, of course, would be very bad news for many industries today. Much of the current economic model is based on excessive, wasteful, and unnecessary consumption, and thus production, and thus turnover. But we do not have to consider ourselves responsible for maintaining that particular economic model. The correct thing is that a person lives according to his means, and that too is to be done with sechel, with understanding, as we're about to see. So a person should provide for his family in terms of food and drink and clothing, according to his means, literally according to the money at his disposal, and according to his success in business and in whatever field of endeavor in which he is engaged. And he should not try to live a lifestyle beyond his means. One does not have to keep up with the Joneses or with the Kohens or the Lewi's or the whatever it is, and one does not. And therefore, if the neighbor threw a wedding for his daughter that cost, let's just throw out a figure, 200,000 shekel. You can translate that into dollars if you wish. He doesn't have to do the same thing. One does not have to go with the crowd. Not on this and not on any other things. Rambam says, Lo yatreach al asmo yater midai. He does not have to be constantly trying to keep up with other people and society around him, perhaps considers reasonable or necessary. He should decide for himself. Again, because he has sense, because he has chokhmah, and knows how to weigh things up and consider the importance of something and the ramifications of something. Based on that, he should make his decisions in life, not based on social pressure or other factors of that nature. A person who tries to live beyond his means and is concerned always to keep up with the Joneses may also, as a result, take on loans, may fall into debt, etc. And this is no doubt not unwise. Rambam continues. Halachat Kaf Aleph. Tzivu Hachamim b'darchei eretz. Hachamim recommended. This is not a halachic statement. That's why Rambam says b'darchei eretz. This is good advice, but it is not a halakha, as we're about to see. Tzivu Hachamim b'darchei eretz shelo yochal adam basar ela lete'avon. A person should eat meat, we're referring to red meat. The word basar, unqualified, if it doesn't say basar off or something like that, which means poultry, then it refers to red meat. A person should eat red meat, should only do so lete'avon, when he has a desire for this. In other words, a person who feels that he needs a good meat meal with a good healthier portion of meat. This is natural and normal to feel such a thing, because it is the normal human diet of human beings, and always has been. But one doesn't have to eat meat all the time. Too much of many good things is not a good idea. And second of all, meat is expensive. There are cheaper foods. Therefore, Rambam says, the Chachamim learned this from with Dayek, and as an asmachta, they mentioned the pasuk, when your soul desires to eat meat. So a person will feel this inclination, and it's perfectly normal and reasonable. And therefore, Rambam says, Dai lo labari lo ochlo me'alev Shabbat le'alev Shabbat. Literally from Friday to Friday. I think that the meaning probably is Milel Shabbat, Lelel Shabbat. That's what I think it means. There are certain places in Chazal where the term Erev Shabbat refers to Lel Shabbat. In other words, Erev Shabbat technically is Friday. Lel Shabbat is Friday night when it's already Shabbat. Usually these two terms are not interchangeable, but there are certain memoroth we see in the Talmud, in a few places where these terms are used interchangeably, and I think that's what Rambam means here. There's no reason to assume that one should eat red meat dafka on Friday afternoon. Eating a serious meal on Friday afternoon is not recommended, as we'll see in a moment. And Friday morning makes even less sense, perhaps. So it must mean Leil Shabbat. It could also be Shabbat itself. It doesn't have to be at night. The idea is that once a week is a reasonable frequency for eating meat. But we see also this has to do, and Rambam therefore also juxtaposed these two statements, these two halachot. In the previous statement, Rambam spoke about the Tamid Chachamim living in a measured and calculated way, in a reasonable way, and based on common sense, living within his means. And here Rambam is also taking into account the fact that it's expensive. So Rambam says, if a person has the means, that's fine. It's not a problem. It's not a sur. In any way, it's not a sur. Most people probably don't have the money to eat red meat every day, because there are other things that one has to for which one has to conserve one's resources. And that's fine, that's reasonable, that's rational. But if a person can afford to do so, wishes to do so, okay, it's okay, it's not a problem. In terms of nutrition in general, we have seen before in earlier statements here in Hilchot Deot, and perhaps elsewhere, that meat is definitely a normal part of the human diet. From what I have read and studied, there is no doubt in my mind that if we think in terms of nutritional science based on facts and not on strange, irrational motivations, such as compassion, supposedly compassion for animals, shall we say, which is not a rational motivation in such a context. It can be demonstrated scientifically, statistically, very simply, that many more forms of life, including animal, mammalian forms of life that live in fields, are killed by plowing fields in order to grow legumes or vegetables, or all manner of things that we grow in the fields in large quantities. No such activity can be claimed to be free of actually causing directly the death of all kinds of creatures that live in those fields. Certainly the modern, even the old-fashioned plows, etc., but even certainly the modern machinery, they literally tear apart creatures that live in the ground in burrows. They destroy habitats. These are things that those who believe in the vegan religion do not take into account, but these are facts. There's also a fact that if you constantly cultivate and plow, then this depletes the soil. The one thing that rejuvenates the top layer of the soil more than anything else are the droppings of ruminant animals that eat the grass on those fields, or other grass, or whatever it is that is their natural source of food. This replenishes the soil. These are the realities. I stress these things because that I have heard and interacted with certain people. I've heard these. Of course, there are many people in the world who are not at all Jewish or not Torah people who have created this religion of veganism or vegetarianism or what have you. And yes, I know that I am I am not here completely in agreement with a certain ma'amar, a certain article written by Rabbeinu Gadol, Rabbi Avraham Yitzchak Kohen Kugzetzel, about vegetarianism. I personally feel that he was misinformed and somewhat misled about this. We certainly know a great deal more about the truth of nutritional science, if one wants to know the truth, that is, because we also know that there are three kinds of lies: lies, damned lies, and statistics. And almost any set of statistics can be manipulated. That is a quote from Mark Twain, by the way. And in general, science has been corrupted, and this is something that all people need to know. Almost all areas of science today have been corrupted, so that it is very difficult, much more difficult than in the past, to get to the bottom of something, because there are all manner of agendas and science and commercial interests involved. These are the facts, and the person ignores these facts at his peril.
Rabbi?
That should what we have said, therefore, on this matter should be sufficient. Yes.
Would the rabbi also agree that people that are supporting the vegetarian and vegan religions are also have a certain tendency to be? It stems from a certain anti-human tendency, and we could even tie this into the fact that some of them support a well-known movement to enable and legitimize immoral lifestyles, which also are not conducive to the perpetuation of the human race. Think about it; it all goes together.
unfortunately, there is definitely a tremendous amount of overlap and interface between all these various pernicious ideologies and inventions, but it doesn't have to be so. I have spoken to self-described Torah Jews who I think are very well intentioned, but they have bought into the feminist, postmodern, and yes, anti-human. There's definitely an element of anti-humanism in these ideologies. They fall into that trap. They don't realize that they have fallen into this trap. Without wishing to offend anybody, they are not thinking rationally. They are thinking, or as it were, thinking, not really thinking from the heart, emotionally. This is a feminine trait. This is it's very good that women are as they are, but men are not supposed to be as women, nor vice versa. When one understands these things from a rational perspective, and when one looks into the real facts, one sees the fallacies and the flaws in all of these claims, in all these various ideologies.
Yeah, I can also say, based on personal experience, that there are a few people I know that I have the distinct impression that they channel all their love to animals or to their pet dog, and it's almost as though they don't desire to give that love to human beings. I'm not against dogs, and I have a dog, but I feel that some people have hostility to human beings, and showing this excessive love to animals is a type of escapism from human beings. I could be wrong, but that's my impression.
I would agree with you. I too have witnessed these things and felt these things. There is nothing wrong with having a pet. Many things can be said for having a pet in the family, and I know there are people who there are certain kinds of religious Jews who shun animals such as dogs or cats, etc., in the house. This is not based on anything rational or anything Torah either, based on Torah either. Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair and the famous story regarding his donkey should prove the point. A donkey is a hayat tume'ah, and yet we see Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair rode a donkey. The same is said for riding a horse or a camel, or using these animals for various commercial purposes. Donkeys and camels were the trucks, so to speak, the engines that moved merchandise from place to place, or building materials. Of course, normally human life has always involved interaction with animals of all kinds. The fact that we are not to eat certain animals has nothing to do with having a pet or using that animal for our various purposes. So to return to the matter at hand, the claim that it is immoral or improper that human beings feed themselves and thrive based on animal-based products is spurious in every way. It has never been the norm amongst human beings. There's almost no culture in existence or in earlier times that was based on such a vegetarian ideal or vegan ideal. Parts of the subcontinent of India, perhaps there is such a culture, that is also rooted apparently in Avodah Zarah. That is why the cows are holy and things of this nature. But as Rambam discusses in Moreh Nevuchim, but essentially this has never been the way of human beings, and it can be demonstrated quite plainly and simply that there are many essential nutrients that people cannot readily obtain and absorb from purely non-animal sources. There is the reality of the existence of a certain vitamin or mineral in foods, and there's also the question of absorption and how bio available it is. So you may have iron in certain plant sources, but the iron in those plant sources is such that it's almost impossible for the body to utilize it. Whereas the iron in animal-based products is much more bio available, and therefore necessary and helpful, and it's necessary. And the same is true for B12, and the same is true for other elemental substances. It is well documented that some people on vegan diets become unwell, chronic illnesses. There are many stories, well documented cases, many of women, for example, on a vegan diet, ceasing to menstruate or to experience all manner of issues with regards to female reproduction. Anyway, I think enough said. Those who wish to look into these things, and I encourage people to look into these things, one has to know where to look. One has to know how to winnow the chaff from the grain. I would mention offhand an Australian doctor, very highly qualified doctor, by the name of Dr. Paul Mason. If you want to look him up, you will find what he has to say interesting. There's also an American psychiatrist, a woman by the name of Georgia Ede, E-D-E. She has also written and spoken on these subjects. Of course, there are many others. Those are a couple that come to mind. At any rate, if it were true that veganism, vegetarianism, etc., were an ideal in the Torah, then you would certainly expect that Chazal would be aware of this, and they would inform us and encourage us to do this. We see no such encouragement. We see no such discussion anywhere at all. And the Rambam here before us is a proof of that fact. Rambam is, of course, quoting Chazal, as always. If one wants to begin discussing the beginning of Sefer Bereshith, certain statements there, to Adam Rishon, to Noah, etc., well, that is a separate discussion. But how people imagine that those situations, even if their interpretation of the Pesukim, even if it is valid, which is also not always so clear, how that could be relevant and applicable to our situation, I do not know. Let us continue. Kaf Beth, Halacha Kaf Beth, or Halacha Yod in some books. Still the end of Halacha Yod. Tzivu Hachamim V'Amaru. Chachamim instructed us and said as follows: Le'olam yochal adam pahuth or pahoth min hara'ui lo lefi mamono. A person should not spend too much of his income on the food that he eats. In other words, one can eat simpler food. One should not. One does not have to, and it's not a good idea. Not always in terms of health, but also not a good idea in terms of spiritual health. To seek out all the luxuries and finer, and some would say fine schmecker things in life. One should eat less than what he is actually able to afford. He should wear clothing that is in accordance with his means. But his wife and children, he should even go beyond perhaps what he might otherwise have thought reasonable in terms of buying attire for them, and other needs. Let us look for a moment what Rambam writes in Hilchot Ishuth. Am I sharing the screen with you at this moment? No. All right, let us do that. Let us look in Hilchot Ishuth. Perek Teth Wow. At the end of the Perek, Halacha Yod Tet. I think you can see that, correct? V'chen Sivu Hachamim. She'yeh Adam mechabed et ishto yoter migufo. Chachamim taught that a man should honor his wife more than himself. And this refers to what we just spoke about now, the same language, in fact, you see in Rambam here, Deot. V'yechabed ishto, Rambam writes here, uvano yoter min haroi, more than his a precise calculation of his means might indicate. Here Rambam writes in Hilchot Ishuth, she'yeh adam mechabed et ishto yoter migufo. He should skimp on himself, but not on his wife. Well, hava kigufo, and he should think of her and consider her needs and be solicitous of her needs, which are all expressions of love. Or hava kigufo as himself. And if he has the means, he provides for her according to his means. He doesn't skimp on his wife more than is reasonable. It doesn't have to be extravagant. He doesn't have to squander money on frivolous and unnecessary things. But women, clothing is important, much more than to men. That is normal. That is the nature of the woman. The same is true with regards to jewelry and other accessories. So therefore, marbeh b'tovatha kefi mamon, as he's able to. V'lo yatir aleh ima yithera. This has to do already with other aspects of their relationship, which we don't have to go into right now. But Rambam basically says that he should not be constantly angry or too much of a kapadan, always finding fault. And Rambam also speaks about how a woman should behave vis-a-vis her husband. We can read those things another occasion. Very well. So we shall return to Hilchot Deot. Rambam continues. This is Halacha Kaf Gimel or Yod Aleph. Derech Ba'alei De'ah. It is the way of wise people who will understand, people of understanding. She'yikba lo adam halacha hamafaneset otho tehila. A person should first achieve and acquire for himself a profession, a trade, some way of supporting himself, and of course a family, as we're about to see. And after having done that, to purchase or to rent, it doesn't really matter right now for our purposes, an abode, a home in which to live. And then marry a woman. Shene'emar mi ha'ish asher nota' kerem v'lo hillelo asher bano v'ayit hadash asher eras isha. In other words, what do we see? What is the what does the pasuk actually say? If you look in the pasukim, so we have here in Sefer Devarim Perek. We are familiar with the Meshuach Milchama, the Kohen who speaks to the troops before battle, and the Shotarim. So it says in Pasuk Hey, وَدِبْرُوا الشُّطَرِيمْ أَلْ هَعَمْلِنُ مِي هَإِيشْ أَشَرْ بَنَا بَيْتْ حَدَاشْ وَلَا هَنَخَوْ يَلَخْ وَيَشَوْ لَبَيْثَوْ. He who has a home in which he has not yet moved into, he should return to his home and not go into battle. يحنخنوا. ومي هايش عشان نطع كارم بروح له يلخ ويشوف لبيته. If a person planted a vineyard, for example, a field, as an example, he should go home. This is a tragic situation which we wish to avoid, that a person planted a field and put in all the effort and will not be the person to benefit from it. A person is engaged to marry a woman, is not yet married. So we see the order of these things. So we see that in the Torah, the order of these things mentioned here by the Shotarim is Baith, Kerem, and Isha. First, it mentions home, which is a place to live, Kerem, which is a source of livelihood, and woman, a wife. What do we see? What do we see, therefore? That marrying a wife and beginning a family needs to be done, should be done in a calculated and reasonable manner, so that a person has where to live, a person has a way to provide livelihood for himself, for his wife, for his family. So the person has to prepare for these things. But Rambam, in fact, when he quotes this pasuk, you will note that he does not mention the house first. He actually reverses the order. Rambam writes, "Mi ha'isha shenotak kerem v'lo hilelo," and then he says "bayit," and then he mentions Asher eras isha. Rambam apparently did this, that one should not run one's life. As we said before, the halacha that we learned previously, and we said this refers to economic, financial, day-to-day mundane considerations, how one runs one's life. This too, the Torah has what to say about such things. Rambam here even changed the order of the statements in the Pesukim in order to stress that a person has to have a source of livelihood. And Rambam continues immediately and says, in Halacha Kaf Daled, which is also Halacha Yud Aleph, in other editions, Rambam continues. This is a direct continuation. Aval hatipshim. The foolhardy, those who do not live in a rational and calculated way, but those who live and act impulsively. אבל הטיפשים מתחילים לישא אישה, they first get married, ואחר כך אם תמצא ידו יקנה בית, and if he is able, he begins to look for a place to live. ואחר כך, בסוף ימו, after all of these things, יחזור לבקש אומנות, או יתפרנס מן הצדקה. And then he begins to think about how to make a living, or he expects the tzibur, the community, to support him. וכן הוא אומר בכללות, and so it says in the Torah, when describing the various kalalot, the various punishments that will befall us if we stray from the Torah. There the Torah says, in the same in Sefer Devarim, it says, Isha te'ares, mentions first a woman, then a bayit tivne, and then kerem tita. This is in the kalalot. This is to be found. Let me look it up here. It says here in Pasuk Lamed. This is in Perek Kaf Het in Sefer Devarim. Pasuk Lamed. You can see the screen, I imagine. Isha te'ares ve'ish aher yishkavena bayit tivna u'lo teshev bo kerem tita u'lo tehalalenu. So you see the order is reversed. This is the way of the fool. Kolomar Rambam says, Yihu ma'asecha hafuchim. Let's go back to the Rambam. Rambam says here, Hilchot Kaf Daled, Yihu ma'asecha hafuchim kedei shelo tasliach derachecha. You will do things in the opposite of that which is the normal, rational, reasonable order and procedure in order to achieve success. So what is in fact the honors? The honors is that you will approach various aspects of life based on all kinds of incorrect, irrational notions. And when you do so, you should not expect to succeed. This is true, of course, in all areas of life. Certainly with regards to something as fundamental as this. However, when it speaks about a bracha, when it speaks about a person acting correctly and Hashem assisting him, it says that David was l'chol derachal maskil. The word maskil, I think I have it here. I think I can look up a source in order to. Just one moment. To show you a perush, one or two perushim on this topic, on this pasuk. All right, I'm sharing the screen with you again. Here you will see this pasuk from Sefer Shemuel, over here. Should be able to see this. Was the pasuk we're looking at, the Rambam quotes is Wahi David L'chol derachal maskil wa dunaimo. What does that mean? David was maskil. Rashi says the maskil masliach. That's also the Targum, Yonathan. The Malbim in his Pirush there writes maskil oseh hakol v'haskel v'da'af v'im ezer hashgaha ki Hashem imo. So there are two conditions for success. First of all, that a person acts v'haskel v'da'af, which has to do with maskil. Also has to, the word sechel is of course connected to the word maskil. If one acts with sechel, then one is maskil. If one is maskil, then hopefully should be the case that one is masliach, particularly if he's worthy of ezer hashgaha, that Hashem is also interested in bringing about his success. Then with that additional ezer hashgaha, then he will most certainly succeed. And that's what the pasuk says. Wahi David l'chol derachal maskil wa dunaimo. Okay, so we're back in Halacha Kaf Daled, and we said that when one does things incorrectly, hafuch, as Rambam said, everything will be backwards. Kolomar, Rambam says in Halacha Kaf Daled, Yu ma'asecha afuchim kadeh shelo tatzliach dorachecha. V'beracha ma hu omer, Wahi David l'chol derachal maskil wa dunaimo. We continue. Halacha Yod Bet or Halacha Kaf He. ואסור לאדם להפקיר או להקדיש כל נכסו ויטריח על הבריות. It is asur for a person to act irresponsibly in terms of his financial affairs. For example, to give away his possessions. Let's say he owns a home and he decides to give it to someone else, or to sell it and give the money to a worthy cause. There are many worthy causes, but what happens to this person now? Where is he going to? Who's going to provide for him, his family? So almost inevitably, this will lead to a situation where he is matriach ala bariot. He will have to ask people to support him, and that is incorrect. That is wrong. The hakdish literally means to dedicate the funds to the Beth Hamikdash, lakdish, hekdesh. So a person cannot say, "Well, I'm a big tzaddik. I'm going to hand over all my possessions to the mikdash or to some other worthy cause, and now everyone else is going to have to help me out." Let's continue this for a moment. Rambam says, "V'lo yimkor sada v'yikneh bayit." The person should not sell a field in order to buy a home. V'lo bayit v'yikneh metaltalin, or nor should a person sell a home in order to buy other items which are not a home and not real estate. Or ya'aseh sehora b'dmei veto, nor should he sell his home in order to then engage in business with those funds. Aval mocheru metaltalim u'koneh sadeh. The correct order, the logical thing to do, is to sell certain possessions in order to buy a field, because a field is an investment, a long-term investment which provides income and is something steady and permanent. Yosim mechamatho lehasliach nechaso. The person should aim, it is correct and right to conduct oneself in such a manner that one is successful economically. That is not at all avera, quite the opposite. It is correct and proper and right to do so. Lo lehitna'oth ma'at lefi sha'a or lehanoth ma'at v'yafsid harbe. Not to behave in an irrational and frivolous and manner, to squander his resources in order to live well now in the short term, and then in the long term, who knows what will be, or to invest money in something which is dubious, something which is high risk. If you're Warren Buffett, then you can perhaps afford to do that. Although then again, Warren Buffett will be the first to tell you that he did not make his billions by investing in high risk enterprises. Quite the opposite. He will tell you that he did it by rational investigation and assessment of the true value and the potential value, and he's actually such people are very conservative, and they do not act impulsively or on greed, and therefore just to hope and assume that, well, I'll invest in this and hope it'll work out. That's not how these people work. And this is common sense. It's also Torah. And that's what Rambam is telling you here. Yasim ma'avamatho lasliach nechasel. Let us also look for a moment, or Rambam writes in Hilchot Arachim, just one moment. I'm now sharing the screen with you. This is in Hilchot Rachim Waharomim Perek Heth, the end of the Perek. This is in Sefer Hafla'ah. Rambam here writes in Halacha Yod Peth or Yod Gimel, Le'olam lo yakdish adam u'lo ya'arich u'lo yaharim kol nechasav. A person should never dedicate all his property to the Mikdash in various forms of what's called arachim or herem or hekdesh. One should not do that. Even though it's a worthy cause. And he who does this, avar al da'at hakatuv, is going against the clear intention of the Torah. Shehareh hu omer, the pasuk states, mikol ashalo, a person can give away some of his possessions, mikol ashalo, well, lo kol ashalo, the mem, mikol ashalo implies some of his possessions, but not all of his possessions. As the Chachamim explained. Very often, when you have a mem in that kind of construction, it is understood to be a mi'ut. Mi'ut meaning that it is not all of the thing, but part of the thing. Wa'enzo hasidut, and this is not considered hasidut, a person who acts in such a fashion. Ela shatuf, this is considered foolhardy and irresponsible behavior. Sharei zeh ma'abed kol mamuno, this person loses all his belongings, all his means. V'yistarech labriot, and how will he survive now? He will have to rely on sadaqah. Wa'en rahamim ala, and who says en rahamim means how can one assume? How can one know that people will come to his rescue to such a degree that he will carry on as before? It's unreasonable to make that assumption. Hasid shoter bichlal mechalei olam. Chachamim stated that a Hasid, a person who lichora has very positive intentions and is trying to act lifnim mishurat hadim, but he's doing so lo al pi sechel yashar, not based on reason, rationale and wisdom, but in an impulsive and ill-considered manner. That is a Hasid Shoteh, and that is exactly what it says in the Mishneh Navot. En Am Haaretz Hasid, and Am Haaretz cannot be a Hasid because he doesn't know what's more important, what's less important. He therefore has no way of determining his priorities and weighing things up correctly. To be a Hasid, you also have to be a Hacham. If you are an Am Haaretz Hasid Shoteh Michlal Mechalei Olam, such people bring about literally destruction of the world. In other words, they create many unnecessary problems for themselves and for others. And this is not the way of the Torah. So we shall end here for today. Mayu beruchim, hizku v'yames levavchem kol hamiyachalim l'Adonai.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.